Hey everyone, welcome to the episode.
Today we're going to talk about our favourite upgrades on our small boat to sail around the world. Upgrade number 1.
So upgrade number 1 is some form of self-steering and redundancy. So for us, we've got a tiller pilot and we're even thinking about getting a second tiller pilot for when we do larger journeys.
For our crossing that we just did, which was 4 days across the Bay of Biscay, it just made everything so much easier, and I think it really helps when there's 2 people as well to kind of keep you more kind of alert for a long journey. You know, if you've got to constantly steer, it can be very tiring.
So some examples of autopilots are, you've got like a ram autopilot which goes onto the rudder stock, or you've got like a wheel autopilot where it's like a band that goes around the wheel. These are electrical ones that you plug in, as well as a tiller pilot similar to ours. But alternatively, you can get ones that are mechanical and use the wind or the water, like hydrovanes and wind vanes, and these are self-steering and use the elements, so you won't be using electric. There is another couple of methods as well that you can use, like sheet to tiller, and that's something that we're probably going to have a look at as we get more experience.
And the other thing is, essentially, they can act like a third crew member as well. So obviously, if something happens, if something goes wrong, if something you've got to focus on with 2 people, you know, that can keep you on course. And we've done this obviously as well. It's kept us on course while the 2 of us are trying to figure something out, or sort something out at the front of the boat, or something with the mainsail. So they really are important if you're planning to do extended cruising, I think, anyway.
Yeah, and if you have a smaller crew, like 1 or 2 people.
Yeah, definitely. I think most solo cruisers would have one anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah. But that being said, there are people that do it without it, and our friend, the nomad sailor, Ali, and his dad actually just crossed Biscay without any kind of autopilot. So, you know, it's possible, obviously.
But I think
not
after
essential,
talking
but we
to
think
them,
it's important.
Yeah, it's definitely an upgrade that we would recommend. Jade, what's that? It's upgrade number 2.
Upgrade number 2 is a sufficient amount of water on board to sustain you. Talisman came with a 100-litre water bag, which we kept while we were in South Sea, because we weren't obviously living on the boat. As soon as we made the transfer to living full-time on the boat, and, you know, we were planning to do extended cruising and offshore sailing, we knew we needed to upgrade this. So we actually ended up getting a 200-litre flexible water bag. We also have plastic water containers, and they carry a total of 40 litres of water. And this seems to be doing okay, to be honest. So we did the crossing across Biscay, and we still had water to spare when we got to land. We've also done 5 days at anchor, and then we've done another 4 days at anchor without topping up our water, and we still have water left again. So it seems to be plenty for us. We were going to do a longer crossing, for example, the Atlantic. We'd probably think about just taking a load of extra containers of water, to be honest. We'd shove them in the bilge, in lockers. Like, we've got a lot of spare space that we could use water. We could use for water, but we just haven't really needed to yet. It's lasting us quite well, to be honest.
Now, there is one other thing that you could possibly do, but it is a little bit pricey, and that is a water maker. I think it's something that we would consider doing, but at the minute it's just not within reach.
And the one other thing that you could do is think of a rain capture system. We haven't done this yet, and it's definitely something that we're keen to figure out and sort out. And there's so many simple methods you can do for this. So when we do this, we'll make sure we let you guys know what we've set up.
There's one that I have seen, and that's on Sailing Yacht Florence, and I actually really like how simple their rain capture system. So we're probably going to end up copying something similar to them, and we'll link to a video about that in our description.
Upgrade number 3.
So upgrade number 3 is power generation and how you're going to keep your batteries full. The best methods that we've found, especially on a small boat, is solar power. We have 200 watts of solar, and that more or less keeps us fully topped up. The other methods that you could use are wind generation as well, and this is something that we would consider, although you tend to see them on slightly bigger cruising boats. And also you can use a generator. So the key to figuring out how much power you need is to look at your electrical system and just kind of basically tally it up to see how much you're going to be using for a whole day. Don't just think about how much you're going to use when you're on anchor, because that'll be slightly less, but think about how much you're going to use if you start doing night passages. We found that when we was going across Biscay, the solar we had been off electric hookup for about 2 weeks at that point. So we'd had about 10 to 14 days, and then at the end of Biscay, that would have been about 2 weeks, we noticed that the batteries were starting to get low. So we were able to turn the engine on just for a couple of hours, and then it just kept us going. So it is important to figure out how much power you're going to be using throughout a night passage and kind of base it on how much power you're going to need to top up. For us, we've got a B&G system with radar and AIS, and all of our lights are a mix between LED and normal halogens. And with 200 watts of power, we pretty much just keep up with everything. The only time that we struggle is when we're charging our laptops. Just on the topic of how much power you're going to be using, one thing that we don't have, and why we think also our 200 watt is able to keep up with our demands, is we don't have a fridge. I think it's keen to point out that we do know cruisers that have a 100 watt panel, and we also know people that have 600 watts. So it really is down to whatever your usage is. Hello, yeah. Who is it? It's upgrade number 4.
He's such a loser. So upgrade number 4 is a stack pack and laser jacks. We've heard very mixed opinions about this on a smaller boat. A lot of people say, you know, on a 28 foot, well, on a 30 foot below boat, you really don't need this at all. We found it really, really, really useful.
Very useful.
And I think, it's obviously not essential, but I personally think it makes long-term sailing just much more safe. The first few times we went out sailing the Solent, we got the sails in way too late, or we reefed too late. I ended up going to the front and trying to get the sail down. And, you know, I got it down, but then it was all flopping around on deck, and I had to try and, like, wrestle it back on the boom and just, like, sail tie it all down. And I just think it's just so much easier now. Like, I just literally lower it down as quick as I can, and it all just falls in the stack pack. Yeah. And that's it.
The only caveat that I would say is when you're raising the sail, sometimes the battens can get stuck in the guidelines sort of thing. Yeah. But other than that, like, that's a minor thing for how much safer we feel when we're lowering the sails now. Because the chances are, if you need to reef or anything like that, conditions aren't exactly always the easiest. Yeah. So, yeah, we just found that the safety aspect of having it, even on a small boat, is absolutely worth it. So, yeah, Laserjack stack packs, we think they're worth it.
Yes. Ah! Oh, something just bit me.
What?
It's upgrade number 5.
So upgrade number 5 is a furling head sail and a storm sail, or potentially both. So what we did on our boat is we actually got a jib that was a heavy weather jib with a high cut that was bright red, so we can also kind of, we can furl it all in and kind of use it as a storm sail at the same time. Now, it won't be a perfect storm sail, but it saves us having to go up on deck or modifying the boat in such a way to make a storm sail. We've found so far that it has worked brilliantly. For all the conditions we've been in light conditions where, yes, it isn't going to perform as well as a Genoa, which we still have on board, but it will perform good enough in slightly lower winds. But in higher winds, it's absolutely glorious. It's so much easier to handle. We feel so much safer having it. And the performance is still really good on this boat.
When we used to rely on our Genoa, I couldn't furl it in. Like, I literally couldn't furl it in on my own. Whereas this, I can just furl it in myself. And that's really important when it's just the two of you sailing around the world, because a lot of the time we are on our own in the cockpit. Yeah. So that's really important, we find, as well.
So, yeah, one of the upgrades that we would recommend is to have more of a heavy weather sail or a storm sail as a backup, and a furling head sail, because that also makes handling sails much easier. Upgrade number 6.
So upgrade number 6 is AIS or radar, or AIS and radar. Again, this is always a really mixed opinion. When we kind of made a video about our B&G upgrade and our radar upgrade, a lot of people were saying it's just a novelty and we wouldn't use it, and it's just a bit of a gimmick. And we've used it a lot. We've found radar really, really useful,
yes,
and AIS really useful. It's kind of, you kind of a lot of the time need one or the other, but having both, I think, is also really useful. When we were crossing Biscay, I'd say AIS was the more useful one.
Yeah.
Especially when kind of it was dark and it was foggy, and we didn't have our prop, so we couldn't use our engine, but we could still see all of the boats that were coming towards us, you know. how far away they were from us, would they hit us, were we on a collision course, what kind of vessel were they, what speed were they going, and that's so useful. It kind of gave us the option to then we could just radio them and be like, you are on a collision course with us, although they didn't answer the radio sometimes. And the radar also has been very useful. There's been a lot of fishing pots and the radar does show them. We've had a lot of questions from people saying, does it actually show fishing pots? And it does.
Yes.
We were sailing in fog literally a few days ago and we could only just about see the fishing pots in front of us and the radar was showing all of them, so that was really useful.
Yeah.
And yeah, it offers peace of mind, so we're happy with those upgrades.
If anyone was to ask which one, if you could only have one, which one would you say?
Do you know what? I'd possibly say radar because the radar kind of shows almost all vessels as well.
Yes.
As well as the fishing parts, whereas AIS will only show the vessels. And although the radar doesn't give the information about the vessels, it shows you that it's there. So kind of, in a way, maybe it's better.
Yeah.
Especially because I know you were saying we still have used AIS, but there's definitely less boats here using AIS than there has been in the UK.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot that don't have AIS, but they're still showing up on radar. So I probably would lean more towards radar, to be honest, for this journey. What would you say?
I would say radar has probably been more useful. But again, in Biscay, it was easily the AIS. I do think that AIS is cheaper, so it's probably more accessible. But yeah, the way that a radar can just pick up whether it's vessels, fishing vessels, smaller boats, and fishing pots, I would just say that it is quite valuable. We've also noticed it picking up seagulls on the water. It has been that good.
That's crazy.
The downside of the radar is the way that we have our radar mounted. If we're in a rough sea, it still picks up vessels, but it's less likely to pick up smaller targets. So it's worth knowing. We
knew this when we installed it. It was basically the only spot we could put it in on our mast, and we knew it wasn't going to be ideal, but it's good enough. It's good enough, but if you were doing it yourself, I'd probably...
If you can get a gimbaled mount, get it gimbaled.
Yeah.
So we've actually been talking about an AIS transponder so far. That's so that you can send and receive. But I'd say an AIS receiver, at the cost that they are now, if you can't have either of the other two, I would still definitely go for the AIS, just receiver. Because that way, at least, you can see other vessels and they don't necessarily have to see you. You can avoid them.
Look what I got for you.
What have you got?
It's upgrade number 7.
So upgrade number 7 leads on from upgrade number 3, really, and that is batteries and battery monitor. Once you know how much your boat is using electrically, I would say then you need to know how much you're going to need to be able to store. So try and work out, the way we did it, is how much you're using for one day or one night and one day on a passage, and then work out how many days do you want to have as a backup in case it's cloudy. So for us, we actually go for about 4. So if we couldn't charge anything from our batteries being full, we should be able to last about 4 days before our batteries were half empty. So we've got AGM batteries, which means that we can discharge them to about 50% and still be safe. If you go for a lithium battery, you can discharge almost all the battery and still be safe. If you go for lead acid, you can discharge 30% and you're still safe. The price points for these batteries are lead acid are the cheaper batteries, AGM are slightly more expensive, lithium are a lot more expensive. We went for the budget but still good value for money of AGM. On our boat, we have 400 amp hours of AGM batteries. That lasts us 4 days without charging. So for your setup, your battery bank, you need to work out roughly how long you want to be able to go off grid, how much you're using each day, and then work it backwards from that. So next to this is battery monitor. And this is so important because you can spend all that money on a battery bank. Our one was about £500. And if you don't know what's going on with your batteries, how much they're discharging, you can actually kill your battery bank and it won't take long for you to do that. So rather than doing that, if you install a battery monitor, you can see what's going in, what's going out, and what your depth of discharge is. So yeah, a battery monitor will also show you how much all your electronics is using. So if we switch on a light, we can check on the battery monitor how much the ampage is going up and down, or the voltage is going up and down, how much is being used. And it enables us to kind of keep an eye and stay safe within our limits.
So they are a bit of an outlay. I believe we would have paid about £150, £200
It was thereabouts.
about there. But we wouldn't be without it. We think it's really, really essential, to be honest, as well for the kind of longevity and safety of your batteries. We do find ourselves checking ours pretty much daily, especially when we're on anchor, just to make sure that the solar's topping them up and, you know, just to keep an eye and make sure we're not overexerting our batteries.
With the Victron battery monitor that we've got on the app, it can show you all the stuff you need. We will show you guys this now. And it kind of shows you what's going in, what's going out, your depth of discharge, how much you've totally discharged and how much you've totally charged. So it's just a really useful app and really easy to use.
We really hope that you found this useful. We feel that not that we're experts by any stretch, but now we've done a bit of kind of offshore sailing and we've done Biscay and we've explored some different cruising grounds now. We feel that we kind of have a bit more of an opinion on what's important and not important on our boat. There's some things that we thought would be important that aren't as important, and then some things that we took for granted. And these are the things that we personally think we wouldn't want to be without for sailing around the world. There's more things that we'd like to add to this, and we'll do another video in the future where we talk about upgrades we'd like, or upgrades we wish we'd had. But yeah, we're happy with all of these upgrades, and it might be something you want to consider if you're doing similar sailing to us or you're planning some different adventures around the world.
So if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing or hit a like. If you have any questions about anything that we've spoke about, just drop it in the comments.
As always, thank you all so much for your support. All the people that have bought us coffees, all the people watching, liking, commenting, all that kind of stuff. We love you guys, and thank you so much for joining us on this adventure, and we'll see you guys in the next video.